and but I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So, Jem, thank you very much. I'll hand over to you now.
Great, thank you, Wayne, for inviting me here today. If there's anyone else on the call, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions at the end. But I'm happy to just take you through what we're doing at Google for Education, and to also make sure that you're informed during this time, especially with distance learning. So this session is really around working together and empowering learning from anywhere, right? So education is in a time of unforeseen complexity right now. And so for some schools, we've seen that distance learning isn't something that they would think they'd had to do or need to prepare for. So the time frame during COVID and just getting schools up and running, we had to really ensure that the schools, especially in the UK, were ready for what was coming. So with the experience of disruption being universal, so globally everyone was in a similar boat, we wanted to make sure that every school and every teacher had the tools for them to be able to ensure distance learning was readily available. So we wanted to make sure that you had a space where students performed at their best, you had teachers that had time to thrive, and then this also affected our IT admins. We cannot forget our IT admins. So our tools were ready for things like this. Our tools were in place to be able to support these three groups of people within the education sector. So if you had a school, where students had everything they needed, where IT admins could roll out GSuite deployments and could roll out devices seamlessly, and then teachers had everything they needed to collaborate in a space, in a workspace, and share information as soon as possible, and also close the feedback loop during this time was super important for our schools in the UK and globally. So our goal in general, by design, is to make sure that the tools meet the needs of everyone who uses them. And so we put them into different categories. And so we name the teachers, we name the students, IT admins, but families as a whole is really important for us as well. And so helping families, parents, guardians understand what technology means, why it's being used in the classroom in this way, making sure that they can see into their child's progress. So using Google Classroom and using the Guardian tools. And so your teachers and your IT admins make sure that everything is sorted so that families feel a part of the process, especially during this time where distance learning had to be set up in the best way for their children. So when it comes to distance learning, the experience of disruption, like I mentioned earlier, was universal, and everyone around the globe had similar issues, but every school and every individual had different needs around distance learning. And so we know that every person in the education system is learning on the go, but in real time. So how do we make sure students have the best home environment to learn in, and making sure that teachers are teaching effectively, being able to manage their classrooms properly, and being able to, if you are returning in and managing that hybrid model. So our tools are able to support that as well. In addition is the school leaders. They're stressed. They have so much they need to worry about. So how do we make sure that they're communicating with parents, making sure they give their teachers the effective tools, and making sure everyone is working to the best of their ability to ensure students are successful for learning. So for the UK, what are some of the schools doing to rise to the challenge? We know that the DFE, we're currently working with the Department for Education to help schools who do not have a cloud platform get onto GSuite and get learning as soon as possible. So as you know, if you're a school that's out there, you don't have a proper setup, or you've dabbled in GSuite and all of your student accounts are not set up or fit for purpose for distance learning or remote learning, the DFE is sponsoring schools to be able to set that up. So make sure you take advantage of that. And I'll send Wayne some links, if he doesn't have it already, to be able to share with you guys after this session. But the UK is really on the rise to making sure every school, especially in England, has a cloud platform. It's different in Wales, it's different in Scotland and Northern Ireland, because they already have centralized platform set up for them, so they can choose which platform to use, and they were ready for distance learning. But with England, the DFE had to step in and really put this amazing program together. So these are a few quotes from some schools we've been working with that have moved seamlessly with GSuite and prepared for distance learning. So you can see a quote from Oldham Grammar School, making sure that it was business as usual and the tools worked hard. And they, with their hard work to prepare for closures, it was just easy for them to move from one thing to another. And then you have school in the West Midlands, Windsor Academy Trust. So focusing on physical and mental well-being of their students and families was key for them. So they not only set up GSuite for deployment, but they wanted to make sure children do daily physical activities, sending well-being resources, and creating a site using Google Sites with all of their links to do that. And I thought that was amazing, a great way to still make people feel heard and their mental well-being taking into consideration with this time. So overall, just so that you know, like, our mission at Google is to provide products, programs, and trainings to help educators and students everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can learn anytime, anywhere, on any budget. And so with GSuite for Education being free for schools to set up, this is something that schools really gravitated for, and especially around the unlimited storage and using Google Classroom. And we'll dig in a bit deeper into what that looks like. But our team is really comprised of ex-teachers and our engineering teams as well, making sure that they build products with education at the forefront. They're not just products that were for business and then brought over with education as on the front of it, but really focused on what do teachers need, what do students need, and what do principals or senior leaders need to have an effective teaching and learning environment. So you're able to transition to home learning really quickly. So all the regions or areas that had GSuite from the start, fully deployed in their schools, were up and ready to go when it came to remote learning or distance learning. So we also want to make sure that, like I mentioned earlier, our products is evolving with the times. Once COVID hit, we had to make sure Google Meet was fit for purpose. So we extended our access to advanced Google Meet features. So some of you may already know that. We made sure that we consolidated our tools to better facilitate remote classes. So integrating Google Meets with Classroom was one of the first things that happened. And working really closely with the Google Meets team to ensure that it's fit for education. And then making sure that teacher controls were improved. Obviously, being able to work on a class or work with the class remotely with 30-odd students, you want to make sure that the teacher has complete control over their classroom. And so being able to approve requests and joining and preventing meeting reuse was key. So safety was important. So making sure students aren't able to reuse links and rejoin meetings to have separate conversations. So that was something we quickly jumped on. Then you have making sure that our programs meet the changes of our educators. So we quickly launched the Teach from Anywhere hub, so that anywhere around the world, if you wanted to get set up with distance learning, you had that ready to go, down to the IT guides, down to teaching and learning guides, and anything needed for parents to ensure that they were also on the same page. And then we also had We also had partnerships. So different partnerships globally to be able to amplify our message so that everyone can see it. And then making sure it was fit for purpose for different countries. So making sure it was translated if needed, and then different nuances, cultural nuances when it came to distance learning was incorporated in the Teach from Anywhere section. And that also included our Chromebook app hub. So if you have any specific apps that you wanted to add and it was localized, you could add that into your distance learning. And then finally, the training piece was so big. Even schools or markets where distance learning was key, you could always use a little more training. So we made sure there were enough how-to articles, tips and tricks, especially around with the school closures and COVID-19. We have always had the teacher center, but making sure we improve the resources specific to distance learning on the teacher center, making sure that teachers were able to also take educator level 1 and 2 certification so that they can also train other teachers within their schools. And so making sure we improve the teacher center, and then the education on air guidance. So any webinars, we did UK localized webinars. We were able to enable educators and any senior leaders that needed to support, especially with their decision of going the Google for Education route. And so now I want to take a deep dive into all of the solutions, and then we've bucketed them into 4 different pillars. And so our solutions empower educators and students and families to connect and be able to learn remotely. This is something that has been built with those principles in mind. So you can see, we have to make sure it's easy for people to use. We know that it's flexible and scalable. So you can run 10 devices or 10 students to 100,000 devices or 100,000 students. So being able to manage from a central location your users and your devices is something that IT admins were shouting about and that teachers really loved. We made sure that it was built for collaboration, so it didn't matter where you were in the world or in the country, that you can still connect with the people that you wanted to. So, and then finally, which is really key, Google for Education is secure by design. And that's something I want to really highlight for you guys. So first off will be around ease, right? So you can see how simple it is to use if you're already using GSuite, and also try and dabble in it if you haven't started using it yet. But it is something that is intuitive, right? There's a lot of AI capabilities in there so that you can show someone else how to use it. You could also be able to learn yourself. So the trainings are there, but it's pretty intuitive to make sure that you have a productive workflow. And workflow is key, because being productive for teaching and learning is something that makes sure that your teachers are able to do to save time. So good productivity saves time. So being flexible and scalable, you can see that how we've lowered the total cost of ownership. So being able to, have a cart of 30 devices, and you're able to use that within an entire school. Or let's say a student does not have a device, a Chromebook or an iPad or anything at home, but maybe they have a mobile phone or there's an old computer at home. Because it's web-based, you're still able to log in with your user account and still participate with your other classmates. And so this is something that's helped schools over time reduce their total cost of ownership, because they're focusing on tools that are flexible and scalable. The one thing I highlighted earlier is about being able to use it on any device. It's important because it promotes an open ecosystem. So if there are students that aren't able to afford certain devices, they can still be able to log on anywhere they're able to get onto the internet to still connect with their classmates. And then also if you have any third-party tools, a lot of web-based tools are able to integrate well with GSuite for Education. So being able to look into combining some of your resources to have a holistic view on the ed tech that you're bringing into the classroom. When I say built for collaboration, it says what it does on the tin, right? Connecting teachers and students in a meaningful way, but being able to share what's important. So you can create a document, work in real time, work together collaboratively as a group, or even as senior leadership without having multiple versions of the same document, right? So if somebody starts, an important policy document, they make a few changes, it's changing on other people's copies as well, or other people's versions as well. So you don't need to resend another email and say, hey, this is version 2 or version 3, or hey, I've made some changes. But being able to get on the same doc, make those changes, create comments for teachers who need to review, or any other key stakeholders. And that goes the same way with student work. So with Google Classroom, you're able to work on docs and slides and sheets, make changes, add the students in so that they can see the changes in real time. And you can also go into their work and see if they need help or support in real time. So that closes the feedback loop, and it also helps students ask for help, right? And you're able to provide that in a timely manner. So the collaboration piece is built into all of our tools, so that any updates you make, it's made in real time, and you can see who made the updates, what time they made the updates, where the updates are, or any changes are. So I think that is really, really key for us as well, to really highlight why it's important that our tools are built for collaboration. And then secure by design. So the way your users are set up, you can customize this in over 250 different ways, because as an IT admin, you have access to your admin console. So you can manage your users and manage the devices that your users are on. So all the policies that you set at a user level, when your students move on to a device at home, those user settings follow them there, right? If they log in with their student accounts. And so we've built in ways that you can continuously detect any issues and prevent any issues from happening. And it depends on what those are, but we've been able to create ways for you to customize those types of detection and prevention. Controls around policies, any alerts if people are using bad language, it goes to the IT admin, or even you can designate someone that gets all these emails or docs where students are, not doing the right thing. So being able to have control over your environment is key for IT admins. And then also being able to delegate admin access. You might be an IT admin that has designed his school in a certain way and wants to be able to give some control down to the teachers. So delegating access, admin access for password resets down to the teacher is super helpful, and it saves time, so teachers aren't running to you every 5 seconds if someone forgets their passwords, or being able to approve certain apps, delegating that down to department heads. So this is very key to be able to customize how you want GSuite to work. We've even seen some schools say, we don't want students to email outside of our domain. So you're able to tick a box, and students aren't able to email outside of their domains. So that is something that is really key, especially maybe for younger students. And you could design this based on level, year group, or even down to the individual. The student can't email outside of their domain. So keeping that top of mind. So how do we facilitate learning from anywhere with our tools? So we talked about the 4 pillars of our tools. And so now you can see exactly what GSuite for Education is. It's collaborative, it's cloud-based. Machine learning is part of our tools, and it's built in. The numbers show itself as of April, and it's more than that now, but 140 million users across the globe are using our tools. So then we've improved and gone a little bit more advanced with our tools when it comes to GSuite Enterprise for Education. And this was based on the feedback we received from maybe some of the larger schools. So if you have any universities or further education colleges or large multi-academy trusts and a couple secondaries, they wanted enterprise level product to be able to run reports, advanced security controls, very specific things to elevate teaching and learning. And so GSuite Enterprise for Education was born and developed to meet that need. And so these are a couple of different features that stand out for GSuite Enterprise, and some of the Google Meet features, which we'll touch on in a bit, is part of that package to be able to utilize GSuite Enterprise for Education. So if there's any large universities, I would say secondaries or multi-academy trust, this might be a tool you can look into to upgrade your existing tool set. Chromebooks, I'm sure by now most of you have heard of Chromebooks, and it's something that completes the package with GSuite, but keeping in mind, you need a management license to ensure all the policies that your IT admin set are on the device. And so our Chromebooks are flexible, they're simple, secure, and everything is in the cloud. And the policies for the devices are set at the IT admin level. Google Classroom, a lot of you have been using these tools already, you've heard about it. And remember, we're flexible as well. So if you're using other platforms, being able to sign into Google Classroom with your single sign-on, you can definitely use that as well. So you can use Google Classroom in addition to any other tools that you have. But it's a great workflow tool for teaching and learning, being able to grade your assignments, comment bank so you're not being so repetitive. It saves time, and originality reports, which is our way of basically a plagiarism detection tool, right? And it searches not only Google search, but it searches your domain. Because, you know, we see a lot of, if there is plagiarism going on, it's usually peer-to-peer. So you want to make sure that tools, that this tool is able to detect any plagiarizing from any students within your classroom or within your entire school. So right now there's 100 million students and educators using Google Classroom right now. And we're adding more and more features every quarter based on the feedback that we see from educators globally. I mentioned Google Meets earlier, and so we made premium features free during the pandemic because we needed to make sure that students were set up for remote learning, especially the large schools that needed 250 participants per call, or that needed to run a live stream. This wasn't needed basically for some of the smaller schools, but really big schools were like, okay, guys, you can actually use Google Meets to run your really large sessions, and being able to ensure that classroom or really large lectures continue. We made sure that we added additional features so that it does feel, have that classroom feel, that remote classroom feel. So making sure that only meeting creators and calendar owners can mute or remove participants, so you don't want any strangers in your class. That also helps with the security aspect, as well as approving those requests that people have to join any of our sessions. So we did that today as well. I had to ask to join this session today. So right now there's 100 million daily Meet participants, and this is growing. So take a look if you haven't really explored Google Meets. It's already part of your existing GSuite for Education package. So you don't need to buy any additional software or tools to use Google Meets. If there's a premium meet feature that you need, so being able to do live streams and recording and things like that, then consider GSuite Enterprise for Education. You get those additional features. And again, these are usually for, I would say, large secondaries. Some primaries have thought about using them, but then large secondaries, MATs, especially further education and higher ed. I just wanted to leave you guys with some quick links to our UK distance learning webinar series, making sure that you see different tools that educators in the UK are using for teaching and learning during this time. And then you're able to ask questions, get live demos with our professional development partners. So they're running every week. So I'll send these links to Wayne, but if you want, you can copy that down, but sign up for our webinars, which are very UK specific examples from teachers. And then we have the Get Started with Distance Learning. So if you haven't really implemented this in your classroom, these tools are super helpful. And then our step-by-step guide if you still need support with your IT side, getting it set up. And so I wanted to just highlight the importance of at-home Wi-Fi access. We tend to get the schools up and running, but now that some students are home, we need to consider ways that students can still access their work. So if there are students that do not have strong home Wi-Fi access, a lot of the GSuite apps work offline. So making sure you set offline capabilities, and then you can start working on Google Docs and Google Slides and Sheets, so that when you do finally have access to internet, it goes right back up into the cloud and you're able to submit your work. So being able to share that information with parents and guardians, as well as considering home mobile hotspots. That's something schools can consider for teachers, and even students that need it. So these are some of the things that you can think about. Some of these companies, we're not partnering with them or promoting them, but these are some of the companies that they started to work with closely in the US. There's companies in the UK that you can talk to around getting mobile hotspots for your students that require it. I know the DFE is working on a device scheme for students, for vulnerable students. So contacting your local authority to get devices for vulnerable students is something that you'll need. And finally, just communicating and supporting families. That's so important to make sure that parents and guardians play an important role in your child's education.
But if I have another
go on. Can you mute?
So I can capture maths from anywhere. Here's where else that's useful. You know all those past papers. So something like these past papers. Let me go and let me open up.
Wayne, I think you're still you're on. Okay, thank you. So I'll just wrap this up.
Okay. How are you doing?
Sorry?
How are you doing, Jem?
We're good.
Oh, my mic was muted. Sorry.
No problem. We're good now. So finally, just communicating with and supporting your families, parents and guardians definitely play an important role. So we put together some guidelines to help schools communicate to parents and letting them know what they're using, what GSuite for Education is. We've created email templates for you, even a Google Terms glossary template, so that parents aren't confused and also schools feel supported. We've also ensured learning accessible to everyone. So our accessibility features are key for any students that need it, so that when you're choosing GSuite for Education for your schools, you can make sure everyone is supported during this time. So you can see the accessibility for Chromebooks, accessibility for the GSuite piece as well. We've created videos and even blogs, so no one is left out. So again, remembering that you're learning anytime, anywhere, on any budget. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer a few before we have to go, but I'll make sure I send Wayne all the links that he needs, any resources that you guys need, and I spoke about it in today's presentation. And then if there's any like managed service providers that are working with schools or local authorities that want to get in touch with me, I'll share my details with Wayne, and then we can have a conversation to help support you as an organization to work with schools to bring GSuite on board. So thank you again, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'm sure everybody got something useful out of that. It was great to see the whole, talk about the range of the full G Suite that's available for education and the like. And we, as a college, we're just investing in GSuite Enterprise because of the extra features that come with that. And that's something that we're just rolling out this week, actually. So that's really useful. Has anybody got any questions for Jem?
Hi, Jem. It's Bruce from City College Plymouth.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi. Just wondering, is there any future plans kind of looking at marking, and for especially with tutors within FE and secondary, to speed up the marking process? Because especially when looking at annotation on kind of work and adding comments, which is fantastic. And I understand that with the Google Classroom app, which is on iOS and Android devices, that you can hand annotate, but you can't on computers or tablets on that side. So is there any kind of way that we can kind of help us speed up the marking process? Because I think that that's the big bugbear and the kind of the difficulty in teaching is, once we've taught it, is kind of getting that work turned around quickly for students.
Yes, and because we want to close that feedback loop, that's feedback that's really important. So there's two ways to speed up that process. And I use quotes because, again, it's critical mass, right? So I would say in-tool product feedback is so important when it comes to Google for Education. So in the whatever tool you're in, so it could be Classroom itself, it could be Docs itself, there's usually like a little question mark that you can click into and provide in-product feedback. We have a dedicated team that reads that and collects all of the feedback around that. The thing is, most people don't use it, but when they do, these features get moved up quickly. So try as much as possible, as many teachers as you can, to put that in product feedback. So that's one way. And Jen is our director that has a team that reads every in product feedback that gets sent. And I don't know if you've noticed, but over time, or every quarter, there's like the tiniest tweaks and features that get released with Classroom. So if you use it a lot, you'll start to see things finally come to fruition. The second bit is to connect with us, right? The Google for Education team, to sort of raise this with product, like, hey, this is a big issue in our market, right? But then if we say that, and then we don't see the in-product feedback on the back end, it makes it really hard. So there's two things I'd like you to do: in-product feedback, and also shoot me an email, because you never know, it could be down the line in the Classroom roadmap in Q4 of next year. I'm just, spitting out a number, but if they start to see it, let's move that up. So please, Wayne, connect myself with Bruce so he can also outline that out for me. And then making sure that FE colleges like yourself are invited to the product roadmap sessions. These are under NDA, and we do have them available for certain customers. So I'd love to get you on one of those sessions when they happen.
Yeah, I'll sort that.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Sorry, just jumping in there. Yeah, I am clicking kind of on that kind of like giving feedback, and I think that is a great tool on all of Google's products and services to add. It's just there's kind of some things that you can kind of see when it goes to the support that they've kind of been going on for some periods. Even kind of what can seem as like a very simple thing from the outside of when you're looking at Classroom, it marks up to 100. It's just that with kind of BTEC and other things, we have kind of a pass merit distinction or not met. And it's just that, and it's just like that doesn't account for kind of a number. So we kind of try and fit it into a number process. But it is kind of like asking, and you can see kind of that there is several tutors and several people who kind of go through that, and there's kind of historic kind of documents. But it would be fantastic to kind of speak with you kind of at another time and kind of catch up just to kind of fire some ideas across. Thanks a lot anyway for everything.
Yeah, I'm happy to get something scheduled as well. And it may not even be only with me, but maybe our adoption managers or some product managers, because feedback like this directly is helpful. Remember, when I say critical mass, it's like globally, is this an issue? But we could also, there's a way for the UK to say, you know what, this is what we need for our market. So voices like yourself, Bruce, is super important. So I'd love to get something scheduled.
Thank you. Anybody else?
One last thing. I'd like to say our team at Google is one of the best when it comes to implementing feedback, to the point where other teams are asking us how we do it, right? So I know it may seem like it's taking a while, but trust me, there's other teams that just don't even look at that.
And do you still send out the emails to say you made this request?
Yes, we do.
Yes, I got one of those a year or so ago. Yeah.
Exactly. So look out for that, Bruce.
Well, can I just thank Jem for taking this time out and giving us that information around GSuite and the whole package, really. So thank you very much. It's been really informative. I hope everybody's got something out of that, and I hope to see you sometime again down in London when we're allowed to travel again.
Definitely.
It's a few years since we met last, but it would be nice to meet up again.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you, Jem. Cheerio. Bye-bye. As Jem said there, if there's any questions, if you've got anything that you'd like me to put to her, then you have my email address. So by all means, send it on to me. And or if you have any questions around our use of Google Classroom and GSuite, then again, come to us. We are a Google reference college, and it's taken some years to get that status. But as part of Google reference and as part of the DCEdTech demonstrator project, we can help out with most questions that you might have. So thanks very much for joining us, and I hope to see you again in 25 minutes or so for the next session. Thank you.